Hi, welcome to another Derek Burleson art. This is one of the paintings we painted yesterday. It's called A Walk in the Woods. It's really easy. As you can see here, I'm going to take a little bit of water. We're going to kind of put that on the canvas just to kind of make the paint mix a little easier. And we just kind of spread it around. Just a real thin layer is all you need. We'll get that on there. And then we'll put some gesso on there. I'm kind of clean. I'm wiping off the excess water that's on the canvas, because if you get too much water, it's going to have a rough time for the paint sticking to the canvas. So this first part we'll kind of take our time on, and then we'll go a little faster through the videos so you can see the process. But here I'm putting on the gesso, which is just a liquid white. It's almost like a magic white that Bob Ross used to use in the oil paintings. This just kind of helps it smooth the colors together. Now I'm going into just a little yellow ochre, kind of putting that on there, going back and forth. I put just a little bit of brown up at the top just to kind of make that a little bit darker. But remember your little X strokes, and then back and forth. Make sure you get plenty of coverage on the canvas, because as that dries you can see through it a little bit if you don't get enough paint, and that's not a good thing to have. So anyway, I'm just kind of putting it in, going back and forth, adding a little more yellow in the center because I want that center to be really bright, especially right in the middle. That's where our light's going to come from. And then you can just kind of watch back and forth. And like I said, I went a little slower on this part of the video just so you could see that this is one of the most important things you're going to do in that painting, is getting that background. So again, I'm just kind of darkening the top a little bit. And now I'm going to kind of clean that out. I'm going to add a little more yellow to that center. And then what we're doing is you really got to kind of let it dry a little bit. Then we'll add more yellow. But now I'm just going into that straight brown. I might have added a touch of black, but more at the bottom. But I'm just getting my horizon line, just kind of busy work, covering the whole canvas so that the top can dry. And now I'm going to go into that flat brush. It's about a 1/2 inch little bristle edge flat brush, and I'm putting a little yellow, just going right in there. This is where my light's going to be, right in here. And I'll do it in layers. So you can see I added just a little bit of white just to kind of make that yellow pop a little more. And I'll just keep working that center until I like it, because we're going to put sun rays in there later as they're coming through the trees, and it's going to really look neat. We're going to have a walk along the path with the sun rays hitting you. So just working that center in, getting it a little bit brighter. Again, a little bit more white until I got the color I want. I'm not really worried about the top because it's going to be covered with foliage. There's going to be leaves. And now I just took my little script liner brush, and I just added a little bit of brown, lightened it up a little bit, and just putting some little indication of trees that are going to be back there. If you get them too dark, don't worry about it. We're going to put the yellow over it, and that yellow is kind of transparent, so you'll see through that yellow and you'll see those trees, but it'll push them way back there, like they're way back there. And I'm just going to keep on doing that. And now I went right into my brown again with a little bit more black because I wanted to be able to see it. And I'm just pressing in some little bushes. I'm using a scruffy brush. Actually, it's a Donna Dewberry scruffy brush. So if you're looking for what the brand name is, it's a Donna Dewberry. But I think it works really good for putting in little bushes, leaves, and just foreground if I want it to look like grass. And you'll see here in a minute. I'll speed the video up when we do the foreground and put the path in, just so you don't have to sit there and watch the slowness. As you can see, I step away from the canvas Probably should have deleted that out, but I've probably went over to see how they're doing. I had somebody on the left side of the class, or I guess if I'm looking at them, the right side, that said they couldn't see what I was doing. So I turned over to the other side here, so my arm's kind of in the way of the camera. But so now I'm going to come back this way, and I'm just going to keep working it, and I'm going to work all the way down. Again, I'm just doing a little busy work, letting the top dry so I can add more light to it. But I'll just keep working my way down. You can see I'm just using little padding motions, and I'm using brown, and then I'll switch over and put a little black in. Then I'll go back into a little brown, and that'll give different tones to these bushes, or whatever they are. They'll be foliage, leaves, who knows what they'll be. Right now we're just trying to get it on the canvas. And here in a minute, there you go. Now I'll speed it up a little bit. I started to put my path in, and now I'm working on that foreground. And there I've just used a little bit of yellow ochre to define my path, and that path will start coming together. We'll seed it into the topography, and that little path will be down. Now, as you can see, I'm explaining to the class about putting the yellow in, and the yellow's going over those little trees that you put in. So now it's going to push them way back there. And we'll have a lot more trees in this. I think you're really, really going to like this painting. And it really wasn't that hard to paint. It was just doing it by steps. Trust the process is what I always say. Like I said, we start out a painting, we look like a kindergartner painted it when we first start. And then we add another layer, and we graduate up to first grade, and then the second, third grade. Then we go into junior high, and then into high school. And then I say, then when we put those little finishing touches on it, that's where we graduate. Now here, I'm taking just a little bit of orange, and I don't know what kind of orange I used. I think I used a cadmium orange light. And I'm just highlighting some of that areas in the foreground to make it look like bushes or leaves. We're not real sure yet. Now you can see I'm highlighting the path. The path will take on about 2 or 3 different layers. And I like that ochre because it's a little transparent too, so it brings through those browns and blacks, so it looks like shadow in your path. And again, I'm explaining to the class what I'm doing, and using a little cupping stroke, almost like what we do waves. But I always say, make sure you go parallel with your painting, because if you start running those streaks downhill, it looks like your path is on a big hill. So I just keep going back and forth. Don't worry about that right side so much. We're going to put in some bushes, and we're going to really seat that path in there into our forest. I think you'll really like it. But we'll kind of just let you watch the painting unfold a little bit. Again, I step away from the painting. I'm kind of explaining to the class what we're doing, but I'm also kind of leaving it up there for you guys in case you're trying to paint along and you want to kind of catch up. But I really like this painting. I think it just really was a fun painting. Now what I'm doing on this side is I'm just taking a little bit of that black, a little bit of brown, and I'm just going to kind of go back and forth underneath, pushing it into that path. So it's going to start looking like shade or shadow, because you won't see it here, because you can see that ball of yellow back there. That's my sun. And so just along that side of the cart, or the cart path, the path through the woods will be shaded there. And I'm just kind of pushing it into my path a little bit. And you'll see as it develops. And I'm just kind of explaining to them why I'm doing that. And again, we will do the other side here in just a minute. We're just trying to get this in. Then we'll start putting more highlights and more things in the on the ground, and you'll really see it starting to develop pretty quick. And that's what I told my class, because some of them were getting a little frustrated with their paths, or they couldn't see the forest for the trees or the lack of trees at this point. But I told them, just trust me, trust the process. It's one step at a time. And I always use that saying of, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's how we paint a painting. So now I'm going on to this other side, and I'm just using a black and brown mixture, and I'm pushing up along into that path. So it looks like that path is starting to be seeded. Looks like old bushes or something's up there. And this will really start setting that path down into the forest. But yeah, it's going to be a really nice painting. As you can see, I skipped ahead a little bit, highlighted that right side. Now I'm going to start putting some sun rays in, just a few to start. And I'll explain later how we put those sun rays in. Well, I guess I should now if you're painting along, but it was just a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white, water. You want to make it fairly soupy. I used my flat brush. I kind of loaded the brush, then I wiped it off almost, so it's almost like a dry rub, and I just pulled it along and made sure I didn't have too much on it. Again, you could always take a paper towel and kind of clean it off if you got it white, or I'm sorry, wet enough. But I think that you'll really like the texture, and the more you do it, I told my class to start in the sky and work their way up to the corners with those rays. That way, if they messed them up or got them a little bit too much, all you can see, all the foliage that we just put in will cover them up. So I just used the black and brown again, and that scruffy brush, put in all my foliage. Then I went over it with the orange, made some layers, and then maybe added a little color to the orange just so we had some layers. Now I'm just taking brown and black with that flat brush, and I'm starting to put in my tree trunks. Just down, make sure that you put them in randomly. Make sure that the bases are some are shorter, some come down further into the painting. This will give your painting depth. But again, I'm just using that flat brush on its side. As you can see, I start real small. Then I come in and I go, oh, that tree needs to be a little bit bigger. I can fatten it. But boy, if you put it in there too big, it's really, really hard to get it small. You're just going to have to make one big tree. So again, I'm leaving it up there for you for just a few minutes so you can catch up. All right. I'm really starting to like the way this is looking. And you'll see it's going to start to really, really pop here in a few minutes. And that's what I always say, that there's a point in the painting where you go, wow, that's what it's supposed to be. And again, I'm just kind of putting in some more trees. You can put as many trees as you want in there. We had some in the class that put in just a few. Some put in some great big ones, made them look like these big old oaks, or some kind of a tree from remind me of Halloween. And this is our October painting. And this is a fall painting. You can also use red in the leaves, more yellows, whatever you want. It's your world. You paint it ever how you want. As you can see here now, what I'm doing is just grabbed my script liner brush, a little bit of black, a little bit of brown, made it really inky. You want it to be inky, and you just roll that script liner brush in your paint. Just roll it to a tip, so it'll just slide right off there. And now we're just kind of putting in some little indications of some branches, maybe some little small trees. And you just kind of shake your hand around there and just let that branch or limb just come out. And as you can see, I'm kind of using it fill in where there was the paint didn't quite get on there, and I may want to open it up and make it a little bit bigger. Like I said, just really wanting to get my detail in there. I want it to look almost three-dimensional. I want you to be able to look like you can just walk right down that path. And I said, if you get all of your trees the same size, same height, that looks like a tree farm, I said, we're looking for a forest. And now here I'm going in a little bit of orange, and then I added a little bit of yellow to that orange just to kind of change its value a little bit, so you can see kind of where the sun might be hitting that side. And then I'll come a little bit right at the tops of those, the sun will hit. But look how that's starting to set in there, and it's really coming together now. I really enjoyed this painting, and I think everybody did too. And you'll see at the end when I show the class photo that I think everybody did an excellent job. Each one had its own character, its own beauty, a little bit different. All right, so as you see, I put a little bit more light in there, and I kind of skipped forward a little bit more sun ray, if you can see that one coming down in the middle. Now I've got that same flat brush, and remember that the paint, I told you, a little bit of white, yellow, and a lot of water, or just wet it down and then dry out your brush a little bit. And now we're just going with some strokes, and we're going to start putting those sun rays in, just kind of how you would see those coming through. And I'm putting them on now because I want the sun rays to look like they're poking through these trees. And I'll put a couple of more bigger trees in front, and it'll really start making it pop. I think you'll enjoy that part. But I'm just kind of putting in where I think the sun would be poking through. And it really is coming down. It's coming together. You see it's coming down the path there. And right up in the center, just kind of find where it's going to come through. And if you go up a little bit, you can see there where it got a little bit dark. One of my branches wasn't quite dry, so as I brought my yellow through it, it smudged. So you can see a little happy accident. It got an extra branch and some leaves on it. So now what I've done is I've taken my filbert brush, and I'm taking that same color mixture, that white and yellow with the water, and now I'm just in circular motions going around, making it look like maybe mist. A fog has lain there, and it's starting to burn off, and the sun's coming through. It's also seeking those trees a little bit. But again, if you don't feel comfortable with this, don't do it. But I'm just adding it in there here in some spots, making it just look like old fog. It's a crispy morning. It's a little chilly. It's sweater weather right now, and we're taking our morning walk. And that old haze look, and the lights coming through. And we're gonna just seat some of them trees into that hazy look. But yeah, just take your time. You could work on this painting for hours. You could take your small little brush and do individual leaves. Make those trees look real. You could make this thing look like a photograph. You could put more sticks and limbs in the forest and make it really look like a picture. But again, I have a couple 3 hours to paint with my class, so I show them how to have a nice painting, but at the same time show them the process. And if a lot of my students have paints at home, and they'll take their painting home and then they'll finish it by adding a little bit more detail. Some of them like it just the way they are. Some say, oh, I wish I would have put that in. I think I'll go home and play with it. And they do. And it's like I said, it's your painting, it's your world. You can make it as elaborate as you want. You make it look let the eye finish it. But again, I took a little bit of time on this technique because we're going to do a future painting where there's going to be a lot of mist and fog between two mountains, and there's going to be some trees. So I told them we're going to be getting a lot of practice with using this technique. So I was showing them in here. And as you can see, this painting right now, you could be done with it at this point. We're going to add a few more trees in there. We're going to make this just a little bit more depth. And again, here I kind of keep the painting up there, and instead of cutting it out, I could have cut it out and made the video a little bit shorter. But if you're trying to paint along, I want you to be able to see instead of having to keep click back and forth and replaying it. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just wanting to bring a little bit more light rays in there, because a lot of times when you put them in there, they go on wet and they really look nice. But then once you get them on there and they dry, they'll dry a little bit darker. So now I've got those, and as you can see, I put a big tree, a couple of trees right there in the front, and you got that sun ray that goes in between the trees. So now I'm just adding a little bit more highlight. Probably I took yellow and a little bit of white, and now I'm just tapping on top of some of that orange so it just looks like the sun is hitting it. And just kind of think where the light's coming through. Where would it hit? But I really liked this painting. I appreciate you guys. Here's a few pictures of our class. They did a great job. Thank you guys for joining us. Please hit that like and subscribe.